Okay, let's talk. The first time I went to a goth club, I was so nervous, but I always remember what song was playing the first time I got out on the dance floor. Do you remember what song was playing when you first danced at a goth club? Come with me today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of when I finally got out there on the dance floor, because it took months before I felt comfortable enough to get out there and do my thing. So I grew up pretty sheltered when I was a young kid. I wrote pen pals in high school, and that was most of my pen pals were music pen pals. So my whole thing was growing up and learning about new bands. And while I was writing pen pals, I got into goth music. And that was a very extraordinary time for me of like really discovering that I liked black clothes and I liked dark things, but I was living at home and my mom would never let me go out in public, really. So when I graduated high school, I was 17 still, and I moved to the Bay Area. And I was I finally found a place where there were actually goth clubs, but I was still 17. So I had to wait patiently for like 8 months before I finally turned 18. I never really did anything bad in high school. I never went out. I didn't drink. So when I moved to the Bay Area and finally had a little bit of freedom and was able to go to my first goth club, it was all over. So one of my friends at college happened to be into the scene, and so he was going to take me out to the big goth club in San Francisco called Winter Gone By. And I was so excited for my chance to be there at the actual goth clubs that I'd been dreaming about going to. But I also was so nervous because as much as I thought I had a look, I realized when you're going to a club, a goth club in San Francisco of all places, you definitely need to figure out what you're going to wear. The competition for looking good was ridiculous. But at the time, I had no idea. My first time I went to a goth club, I remember exactly what I was wearing. I wore a black skirt and I had this top that was kind of glittery and it was a little see-through so I could wear like another top underneath and be a little more revealing. But I knew it had gold buttons, and I don't know what the style is now. If gold's a little more, ever since steampunk happened, brown's now popular, so brown's a goth color. So I don't know. At the time, though, gold buttons seemed ridiculous. But I went in there with my gold button shirt and I took in everything. The first time I walked into Winter Gone By in San Francisco, it was foggy, smoky. The club was in an older building, so it had this real feel of like you're actually walking into some sort of mansion. And the dance floor was just covered in fog, and I could just see bodies moving in and out of it, and everybody looked so elegant. I couldn't imagine that I would be able to fit in out there. Just wait till you hear what song actually got me dancing. Because for months, my best friend and I would go to the club, we'd get a Long Island iced tea at the bar because they didn't check my wristbands, and we would go up into the balcony of the club and look down at everybody dancing and twirling on the dance floor, and we would drink the Long Island iced teas and just sit there and dream of going out there. I'm not sure if it was as we started to get to know people and would finally make it downstairs to where the dance floor was and kind of loiter around there, because you can't be upstairs and hear a song and go dance, because once you get dancing, you know how it is. You hear the song, you got to get out there on the dance floor, so you never want to be too far away from it. So I'd probably been watching people on the dance floor for weeks before I finally got the nerve to dance. And it was to Peter Murphy, Cuts You Up. For me, I was already in love with that song, but when I heard it on the dance floor that night, it was already like a hit in my head, and I was like, this is the moment I'm going to go out there. And I will never forget that moment. I'll never forget what song it was. I always wonder, for everyone else, tell me, do you remember what song it was that was playing? I've asked a lot of my friends, and they have a few that can't remember anything about what song was playing when they first got out there. But I do have a lot of people who do remember, because I think it's a pivotal moment that first time out on the dance floor. It builds this confidence that you didn't necessarily know you had. For those of you who have been afraid of going out there on the dance floor, just do it. I think with everything in life, we put so much pressure on what it's going to be like when we actually do it that we put off waiting for this perfect moment. But the only way I got so enamored with dancing was by getting out there on the floor the first time. And I must admit, there was something liberating about being out there. I immediately became one of those people who goes across the whole dance floor. I don't know, what kind of dancer are you? Because I'm definitely one of those persons going to fly my arms around and maybe get in your way. But I built that confidence through that first dance, and it was an amazing moment. I really think everything changed for me that moment. It was like I really felt like I fit in, and I would continue to go dancing at goth clubs for centuries. Okay, maybe not centuries, maybe years, maybe at least a decade or two. I finally got to an age where it felt like, well, I don't know if I feel like I'm having as much fun in the clubs anymore. You know, as elder goths, some of us might not be at the scene as much as we used to, but our heart is still there. And I have definitely done some Zoom dancing before and danced alone in my room because, to be honest, it's part of who I am at this point. That moment when I first went to those goth clubs, I felt both intimidated, but also like I found my home. And for years after that, I would spend so many times at so many different clubs in San Francisco. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I would be doing the same things. I think of how many times I'm in the bathroom mirror just covered in sweat from dancing on the dance floor to so many amazing classic songs. But Peter Murphy Cuts You Up will always be that special one in my heart that reminds me of that first time at that first club. And that confidence I gained from going there helped me develop more of who I was and more of my personality. I've always been attracted to the sort of dark and gloomy looks, but I've also kind of have a perky personality, so it's been an amazing time trying to meld those two things together. Being an artist as well, it comes across through art. I've done so much work, so much of my art represents a lot of the music I listened to growing up and the bands and the aesthetic that I'm just into from being part of the goth scene. And that's also part of why we founded Bones and Black, our clothing company. And as I've aged and as I've become an elder, I've gone back to sort of that passion for the things that were subcultural that made me, and how a lot of people assume that because we are into subcultural things that we're looking for attention or trying to stand out, when a lot of it is just our own self-confidence and our own personal opinion of ourselves. And that's what our Bones and Black clothing company is about, connecting my past with our art and with self-confidence in who we are. So, do you remember your first moment at a goth club? Did you have an experience like that which shaped you? Or are you someone who still hasn't even gone and is a little nervous about your first time? Let me know in the comments because I want to talk about this stuff. This is like what I'm into. And that being said, so if you vibe with the goth style, underground music, DIY projects, fashion, and art, this is the spot for you. We're just getting started sharing all about ourselves here at Bones and Black, and we want you to come along for the ride. We're here to share our life as artists, as brand makers, and as just people who've experienced all kinds of things. So hit that subscribe button and please comment if you have any juicy stories about your experiences because I want to know. Thanks for being here. Stay bold, stay dark, and I'll see you on the dance floor.